Okay, welcome to today's episode of the Australian Lawn and Garden Podcast. This is an Ask Me Anything, and you guys probably know what that means. It's simply I put up on Instagram and Facebook that ask me a question about the industry, something about business or gardens or lawns or whatever, and I'm going to share my opinions. Today is the 30th episode of the podcast. Would you believe it or not? I think we're only a bit over 4 months. Do you know what? I think it's 4 months to the day. 4 months a day, or 4 months and a day, or 2 days or something like that since we released our first podcast. So 30 in, a third of a year. If we get our act together, we might get 100 in the first year. But anyways, so let's get into it. We've got a bunch of questions. I got a really good response from people, which is exciting because I didn't know if I was just going to have to answer, 3 questions and make the answers 40 minutes each or something to make it a proper episode. But no, we got a lot of questions. My computer is beeping at me. Nope, that's a silly little notification. It thinks that happens on solo episodes. Let me get into it. Find a place to hold my phone. What can I lean up against? It's obviously a very professional episode. You can tell I'm prepared. That's quite nice doing solo episodes where you don't have to research people. Although I do like researching people and finding interesting things about them. I'm going to find a holder for my phone and then I'll come back. All right, I'm back to a phone holder. So let's just get into it. Here's the first question. Now, I might butcher some people's names here, and I might start this wrong out of the gate. But Jay, I think Kufoni, or Kufone, I have no idea how to pronounce that correctly. Hopefully one of those was good, has asked, trailer or light truck for contractors? I've actually been asked this a few times because we have both. We have a light truck. We have an Isuzu NLR 45150. I think is what it's called. Anyway, nice little small truck. And we have a bunch of utes. And the only reason why I don't have 2 trucks is COVID, basically. I think trucks, for most people, are going to be better, but it just depends on, because when you say for contractors, it's like, well, that's a wide variety of services that we do, and are you someone who's in the city a lot? Maybe a van might be better. Are you somebody who... you do a lot of ride-on work? A truck is, a non-negotiable if you're carrying a lot of weight all the time. But, maybe you want something, there's a whole bunch of things. Maybe you want to put your kids in the back, but if you're talking purely work vehicles, my recommendation, and this is what I do, I have an old Suzuki Swift. And I love that car. Cheap on fuel, small. And if I want something to drive around, that's what I drive around. The rest of my stuff is just pure work vehicles. If you have the space to park it, of course, then that's great. I recommend doing that, having a dedicated work vehicle. I'm not someone who cares about my cars, to show off or anything. I'm happy with an old car, little, run around. But when you get a dedicated work vehicle, you can just rig it up to the nth degree and all that sort of stuff. And I think single cab just... is so much better than dual cab from a work perspective. But if you're comparing a single cab ute to a light truck, the truck has way more space on the tray. Yet my 2022 Hilux single cab, compared to my 2021 Isuzu, the single cab Hilux has way less tray space. The truck has way more tray space, way more carrying capacity, can tow a lot more, is better on fuel, even though it's heavier than the ute because it's just made for this sort of stuff. When you're towing a trailer with a Hilux, you feel like you're towing the trailer. The truck is so slow on its own that when you put the trailer on, it really doesn't feel any different. The problems with the truck is it is not a nice, comfortable ride if you don't have any weight on it. It just is so rigid and stiff. And, it's a little bit wider, even though it's shorter than the Hilux. It's wider than the Hilux, so it's not easy to park. So that's why I say get both varieties. But yeah, so that's my opinion. Light truck for most people. It really just depends on what you're doing. Next question from InStyle Gardens. That's Joel, who we had on the podcast recently. He asks, if you weren't in the green industry, what would you like to do for work? I don't know, because I've basically, I can have some stabs at it. I was, for some of you don't realize, I was at one stage in my life considered a professional athlete. That was in my late teens. I was a competitive swimmer. You might be aware that I have an autoimmune disease, and Had that as a kid as well. And this is a long story, but I actually couldn't walk for about 3 or 4 months due to that disease. Got permanent bone damage and erosion in my joints, and so I'm actually, well, not anymore, but I could be if I wanted to be classified as a Paralympic level swimmer, somebody who would swim against people who, missing, fingers or small, impediments like minus cerebral palsy or something. But yeah, I was a competitive swimmer. I represented Australia a few times. So I'd like to think that I would have tried to make it to the highest level, Paralympic Games, World Championships, something like that. I have run ultra marathons. I've cycled. I started a charity fundraiser called Pedal It Forward with some friends. So I was co-founder of that, not solo thing. But 10 years ago, we cycled around Australia. I was a support driver, I should say that. But as a team, the goal was to cycle around Australia. For charity, we did in 4 months. And in 2018, so 5 years ago, just before I had my second bout of bad health, we cycled through, and I was cyclist on this, cycled through Tanzania, climbed Kilimanjaro for charity. 2020, I think, when I was significantly unwell. I didn't take part of this, but friends did ultra marathons and all that sort of stuff. So probably involved in those sorts of maybe sport, charity, things like that. And, I have a passion for that. I love doing those sorts of challenging side projects, especially when business is a bit quiet. Jesse DR, he asks, how do you go about the pest/weed management in your business, i.e. qualifications, etc.? Great question. I don't know the answer for every state. When you're talking about getting qualified, I think there are a couple of states, if I'm not mistaken, that you don't actually need qualification. I don't think that's a good idea. I think the extra hassle for the cowboys are never going to go through it. And it's a great opportunity for you to differentiate yourself. But how you do it over here in WA, you got to sign up for a little course. You do the course. I think it's 2 days. It depends on which level of license you're going for. If it's just a handheld or if it's a like a boom spray ticket. Boom sprays cost more, takes more days. But you do your course and you do a test. I basically think you can't fail the test. Like they want you to pass, so they're not going to cut corners if you're an absolute idiot, but they really will help you. At least that was what my experience was. And it's really more about safety. And it does depend on who you get it through, but really the number one goal is safety and the basics. You're not going to learn about every single herbicide on the market and how to use it in a professional way. You might learn a lot of different things about that side of things, but it's more about like spray drift and avoiding, lawsuits and doing things safely and all that legal stuff. Then you've got to go through the Department of Health, and that gets you they check over you, and that you got to go to your doctor's note. They look at your utes, all that sort of stuff. So it's a lot of hassle and it's a lot of paperwork and it's a pain in the butt. But once you do it, you have it, and you just have to, sign off on something every year and pay your fee. And it just puts you in a bracket as a licensed spray technician, where I find you get a lot of trust from clients. I mean, you should be doing it straight away anyway, but you're going to get a lot of trust from clients as soon as you mentioned that you're licensed, and you can charge a lot more for those services. I believe for the same thing, someone who's a cowboy might charge $70. You might be able to say my minimum is $110. And that's a lot of money difference. So worth it for sure. And I think in this day and age, you really need to differentiate yourself. So that might be a good option for people. Next one is SBS Lawns. Now, okay, this is Ash Smithers. He sent me an essay in a message, but here's the question. I would like to hear your honest opinion on coring, whether you believe it necessary. Let me read out his specific question that he asked me. I'll find that up. I want to explain further what I mean. I've heard opinions from people that most of the time coring is a bit of a scam. They're referring to the contractors who just go, core a lawn, leave the plugs and do nothing, or at the very least apply a granular fertilizer. He's asking for my honest opinion on whether I think that's a scam or not. When himself and another contractor do coring, they core, clean up the plugs, apply soil amendments, granular fertilizer, your humic, kelp, wetting agents, things like that. And he's sort of comparing that, I'm reading this essay, to people who just core and run away. I would tend to agree that if you are just coring and running away, it's not that it's a scam, because it does have benefit. This it's not a scam, but I have seen it overpromised, way overpromised, because especially in WA, we've got sandy soils. There's no nutrients in the soil, and so when you relieve the compaction, you might help a lot of different things, but you still need more nutrients. So you're not going to get the green up. And a lot of people might core, fertilize, the wetting agents, do them all together. And then they're like, I'm not sure which caused what. Here's what I know about coring. There is a direct correlation between soil compaction and root growth. This is well documented, especially in farming. Obviously, it's very important in farming. And so when you have a very compacted soil, you do not get much root growth at all. It's just so much harder for the lawn to actually, or any plant, to grow their roots in that soil. It takes a lot longer. Obviously, the softer the soil is, the quicker those roots grow. Clearly, roots are so important. So somebody who's really worried about, the oncoming, water problems that people might have over the east, you might be really worried about that whole side of things. The reality is that coring is probably going to be really beneficial, especially if you do it, like, you've got to be onto it before the problem happens. If you're coring a lawn that's really unhealthy, you might be a little bit late. If you're coring now in spring, you're going to get more root growth before, summer hits. Then again, I think coring is also a really good complement to the other services. If you have hydrophobic soil, it will somewhat help the water get down, but it's not going to help, it's not going to be the only solution. Getting a wetting agent in there is going to help as well. Doing like fertilizing, especially if you're fertilizing with something that has phosphorus, that will help root growth as well. So yeah, anybody who says all your lawn needs is this one service is probably, they're probably overselling it. And I've actually seen it a lot with verti mowing too. I've probably seen it more, that over-promising, under-delivering with verti mowing over the last 3 years in WA than I have with anything else. People would come in and they'll verti mow the lawn, put some fertilizer on, put some amendments on, and the lawn comes back green in 3 or 4 weeks, and the client's amazed. And then another 3 or 4 weeks and it's starting to look a bit sad again. And 10 weeks after the original service, it's not doing too well, because in gardening, it's far more important to have consistency over intensity. And we have these conversations with people on a regular basis where they say, hey, look, I just want to get this done. I just want to get this all sorted. And you go, it doesn't work that way. It's not adjust. It's we got to get it sorted, and then you got to stay on top of it. And so that's probably where the scammy part comes from, over-promising, under-delivering. Next question. This is from Momentum Mowing, who is Ash's friend as well. So all the WA guys coming together. If you only had one form of marketing to gain new jobs, what would that method be? To gain new jobs. Well, it depends on what type of client you were trying to target. Let's assume you're targeting residential jobs. Let's go residential. Let's go commercial. We'll change up. If you're trying to get just bulk residential work, I think Google AdWords is great for just immediate response. You do have to do some work on it, and all these take work, all these take time. But Google AdWords, it's way better. If you're going to go out and deliver flyers for 8-10 hours a day for a couple of days just to get a couple of thousand flyers out, most of those are going to be rejected because people aren't what you would call a wet lead. They're not somebody who's ready, or a warm lead. They're not ready to buy right now, but someone who's searching on Google is ready to pull the trigger. So Google AdWords, it's a way that you can pay to have your page at the top. You need a good web page. You need a convicting, service, and you need to be doing things professionally online. But if you have a website, get Google AdWords. It's not enough just to have a website. Your website's probably sitting on the 3rd or 4th page on Google. No one's ever clicking far that down looking for you. I would also say, actually, it depends on how you can do it, but Google My Business, those business listings, super powerful. You need to do a lot of get a lot of reviews. So, do you know, if we're talking free, Google My Business, free. Ask all your clients for reviews. Go do some free services for friends and family, and then get them to review you, but put up the photos of you before and afters. So don't just get them to be like, oh, this guy's done my lawn. Don't get them to lie, I'm saying, but do a free service for them and get them to say something nice about you. I think that's totally respectable. If you got photos of it, you know, it's giving context to your work. But yeah, that's free. Google My Business, paid, Google AdWords. That's for residential work. If you're doing commercial, it's probably the tendering process, but it's not going to be easy. So we did talk about how to get $100,000 contracts. It's a whole process in there. How to get tenders. That's another quote, another podcast. So, but yeah, those would be my answers. Next question. How do you program in a 2-week holiday during the start of the growing season? This is from Millionaire Lawn Care, or Millionaire_Lawn Care. How do you program in a 2-week holiday during the start of the growing season? Well, personally, I probably wouldn't. I mean, it's hard because it depends on why you've done the holiday. My honest opinion is if this is your personal choice, right? It's not like, let's say it's your wedding anniversary or something. You know, that's just when you got married. You know, you can't really help that, or you know, some family event or something. If it's your personal choice, take your holidays. We take 2 weeks around Christmas. Clients are fine with that week and a half, and then take the rest of it in winter. Like that's the industry, you know. Like if you must go on a holiday at the start of every growing season, you're probably going to shoot yourself in the foot, because it's such an important time to work. It's such an important time to get certain services done. So how would I do it? I just wouldn't do it. I wouldn't take a 2-week holiday during the start of the growing season. How do you program it in? How can I help this person? How do you program in a 2-week holiday during the start of the growing season? I really don't know. It just depends on the services that you do. So I can't really help you too much with that, because my honest response is that I just wouldn't do that. That's no help at all. What a useless podcast this is. At least for that question. Next question. How do you grow your business? Meaning the process you use to go to the next level. It depends what level you're at right now. Here's the number one mistake I see people, because I think what people probably mean is when they say the next level, you know, you going from solo, maybe with an offsider, to growing and having some employees, right? The biggest mistake I see people make, and I made this myself for about 2 years, right, is you hire people to be gardeners and then you try and take an admin role, and or a more managerial role. And the reality is that most people who are gardening in this industry, the labor market is not great, right? You're going to really struggle to find great talent. If you're a small business owner who does good work, you know, good luck finding somebody who is just as good as you at gardening. They will exist. There's going to be plenty of people out there who are going to be better than you, but those people typically are not going to work for somebody who's hiring their first employee. You know, they're highly valuable. They're, you know, first or second in charge at, you know, the business they're at now, with people underneath them and all that sort of stuff. So the problem is people go and hire a gardener, or they try to, and they just can't get someone as good as them. And then they go do admin. And the problem is that they're not very good at admin. You know, they just think that's the way you should go about it. The reality is that it'd make a lot more sense to hire somebody who does administration better than you, pay them for 10 hours a week or something like that. And that would free you up, theoretically, for roughly 10 hours a week worth of gardening work. If you're charging $100 an hour for gardening work and you're paying the administrator $30 an hour, well, they're probably doing a lot more work in that 10 hours than you can get done in 10 hours, because that's where their gifting actually is. And you're making $70 more per hour, so $700 more per week if you're doing 10 hours worth of work than you were before. And it just increases your level of professionalism. And like we talked about with Darren, with how to get $100 an hour clients, it's all those 1%ers, like how quickly you answer the phone, how professional you are with that. And so many contractors hate their phone. They hate that side of things. So how do you grow your business, meaning the process you use to go to the next level? I mean, the big overarching thing is find what you're weak at and get somebody to either replace you in that or find a system that would improve you in that. And I think for most people, that's the administrative side. So you need to get either an administrative employee, a virtual assistant, something like that to come and help you out. Another thing that might be worth considering is if you have a partner who has a job, you might think, well, maybe they're earning $30 an hour at their job or $35 an hour at their job, for example. Why would you get them to work admin at your job for $30 an hour? They're going to lose that money. But that's not the right way to think about it, because that $30 an hour is leveraging you or opening you up to doing $100 more per hour, or $100 per hour and more of those hours. That's what I should have said. So I think the number one thing to take yourself to the next level, if you are thinking about doing employees, is to do the admin side of it first. And that means that you can be out in the field more when you hire those actual gardening employees, the admin's covered, and you can go and do that sort of stuff. Is there anything else that I would do? Processes you use to go to the next level. Yeah, using a CRM, which is a client relationship management software, like a Jobber, ServiceMate, Service Autopilot, those sorts of things. I think that's the basic stuff. If people have more questions, they can ask it next time, because that's like that's a long conversation. Lots of things you can do. Next one, what are your top 3 1%ers you and your business focus on for improvement? Love the potty. That's from Bowden's Lawns. I'm glad you love the potty. Sound like I said potty there. What are your top 3 1%ers you and your business focus on? How quickly we get back to clients. That is the number one thing that we focus on, like above and beyond the quality of service. And the reason is that when you are really quick to get back to somebody, you give yourself a lot more grace than you might have realized. So a business that, and we talked about this before, when you think about your service, there's about 10, 15 or so points of contact that a client might have with you before they even get the job done, right? So they go on your website. That's the first thing. They're reading through the information, so how clean and nice is your website? How helpful is the information? That's 2 things there. They contact you. How easy was it to contact? Now, most people are pretty the same, but some people it's really convoluted and difficult. Then, how quickly did you get back? Did you answer the phone straight away? All that sort of stuff. How helpful were you when you answered the phone? And then, when you booked the service in, was it nice and quick? And, did you rock up on time? I think we're up to about 7 things there. When you rocked up, how did you smell? Were you helpful? Did you know what you're talking about? There's all these different points of contact and ways of looking at it before someone even gets a quote and before someone even, does the job. But one of the things we focus on, like real clear communication and being really quick. So our goal is, if anyone emails us between business hours, that we will reply within 20 minutes. If we're beyond 20 minutes, that's not great. That's our standard. You hear gyms, I think they say 1 or 2 hours with gyms. So to be clear, they're kicking a lot of people's backsides. I know a lot of small businesses, they're not replying till the night, right? But you can just imagine, like, if you have those three models, us who reply within 20 minutes, gyms who are replying within 2 hours, and another independent who's replying at the end of the day, who looks more professional? Straight away, we look more professional. And even if we say, hey, look, we're full, we can't help you out, or we only do this type of service, or, even if the person never goes with us, our reputation is right up there as these people organized, all that sort of stuff. And another thing that's really important to us, so today we had an example where I had 2 quotes booked in, and we told both of the clients roughly a time that I would be there. And straight away, when things were looking like I was running behind, I messaged the client that I was going to be 25 minutes late. I was there 24 minutes late. I was there smack on when I said, sent a message, I'm here. That communication, those 1%. So the first thing I would say would be how quick you are to respond. The second thing would be the communication like that, like, we're going to be here this time, if we're running behind, sending text messages, just little things like a text message takes you 30 seconds to send. Hey, it's Luke here from Silverstone Gardening. Just so you know I'm running behind, I'll be 25 minutes late. That is so quick to send. And it just, man, puts you right up here. And then you go have the conversation with the client and they're really happy about that. And then the last thing, it's another administrative thing, but it's the after calls. We've told this on the podcast before, but new listeners might not have heard that we have contacted in the past every client who got a service with us after their first service and regularly every couple of months if they're a regular client. And we just go, hey, how is it? Is there anything we could have improved on? What would you rate us out of 10? And just asking that question puts you in a category well beyond the normal Joe. And if you do those three things and then you come in with your quote, well, obviously the last one's after the job's been done, but you come in with your quote after doing those two things, great communication, answering so quickly. If your quote is $10 more, somebody else quotes 50, you quote 60, someone quotes 100, you quote 125. It's like, I can see why this person's better because they're just so much more organized. And so there are things that take you not a whole lot of time, and the return on investment is fantastic. And again, that comes back to why I would say that, focus on your administrative side. If you're going to try to grow your business, don't focus on the gardening. Don't try and put on some 18-year-old whippersnapper who's going to, help you with your laboring, if that means that you're going to drop the ball with your administrative services, because admin is just so much of what gets you the jobs. That's all for the Instagram side. Let's go to the Facebook comments. So Facebook, let's start. Okay, Richard Applewich Garden, who's a friend of mine, he says, lawn renovation costs. I asked him to clarify a little bit more, and he was talking about contractor costs, etc. So that's a really broad subject. So I don't know how I can specifically answer everything. I guess the idea that Rich is trying to get across is, when you look at lawn renovation, what should people be charging? And talking about that as a specific type of service and the costs involved with that. So for those who don't know, lawn renovation is vertimowing, top dressing, aeration. I would put this type of service in the same sort of category as weed control and reticulation services. And the reason is that they are very seasonal services and not like mowing and general gardening services that can get asked for year round. Obviously, there's dips and, booms in those seasons. But like lawn renovation here, in WA, maybe it's different northern Queensland where it's warmer, but you really only have 6 months of the year you can do it, September through to March. And you've got to make all your money in that time. So there's a really good argument to say that if you're doing a service that can only be done for 6 months of the year, and that's what you're going to specialize in, you really should be charging about twice your hourly rate. And if you go back to when we talk about, excuse me, let me have a little drink. If you go back to the podcast that we did on charging, how to work out what your hourly rate is, one of the first things we try and work out is how many hours are you going to do in the year? Because you need to take your total expenses and divide it across those hours in the year. If you're doing lawn renovation services, what you're going to find, same with reticulation, same with weed spraying, maybe a few other services like fire breaks or things like that, you have a limited window to service that in. So you have $100,000 of expenses, for example. If you've got to cover that in, 1,000 hours, you have $100 an hour of expenses, just of expenses. So you got to put your wages on top of that. And so, yes, you should be charging a lot more per hour. The other thing to think of is jobs that are not very attractive, very difficult, where there's not a lot of competition. You can charge a luxury price for that, to say, look, I'm not going to charge my normal rate, my flat rate for this. I'm going to try and make real money from this service. So, yeah, what would that mean practically speaking? For us, now everything we charge around this hourly rate, to be honest, because everything we do is specialized services these days. But we're charging about 150 to maybe 210 $30-ish an hour for time on site, excluding materials. The higher end would be for the smaller jobs where the minimum price comes in. So like if we're doing a Vertimo, that's 30 square meters. That's going to be under our minimum, I believe. So it'll be under our minimum. So that's how the hourly rate works it out. But yeah, we're going to be charging those rates for that. Whereas you might hear that and go, wow, that's a lot of money. But people say yes. And the reason why people say yes is because it's specialized. And like I said, we're answering the phone quickly. We're doing a good service. People can trust what we're saying. The website looks good, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, and look, the cost as well behind these sorts of things is here's a concept we might not have talked about before. It's a concept called resource utilization. It's really important to know this sort of stuff when you have a lot of equipment. And this is one of the things that some small businesses fall into, a trap they fall into, is that they will overextend themselves with the amount of pieces of equipment they have. Now, on the flip side, if you're making a lot of money and you need a bit of a tax break, fantastic thing to do is to buy equipment that may make you more efficient. But a lot of people, they buy the aerator, they buy the Vertimower, they buy a top dressing machine, and their real work is lawn mowing. And so you look at that and you go, well, you've just spent, say, Vertimower. Let's say you get a Mowmaster Vertimower for $6,000, $7,000, $8,000. A simple walk behind top dresser for $3,000, and an aeration machine for another $8,000. What's that? Close to 20? $17,000, $18,000, $19,000, $20,000. Think about that. How many hours are you going to be using that equipment as well? If you're only going to be doing 10 or 15 Vertimowing services a year, why would you get $17,000 worth of gear? That makes no sense at all. A lot of that is ego driven. The service is quite a sexy service for some people, and so they want to get involved, and they love the shiny new sexy equipment. Same with ride-on lawn mowing. People go buy massive ride-on lawn mowers hoping to win a contract. If the contract never comes, you've got this $50,000, $30,000 lawnmower sitting around doing nothing. That's resource utilization. And so think about that as well. I think it's much smarter. If you're going to spend $8,000 on an aerator and you're going to go aerate lawns, it makes a lot more sense to me that you would also budget $1,000 for marketing. Probably Google AdWords, as we talked about before, maybe Facebook ads, things like that. So you can actually use that bit of equipment and not just buy something and have it sit around. But that's another thing that you need to think of, in that if you're going to charge the same hourly rate that you're going to have for normal gardening, for any specialized service that uses any specialized bit of gear like ride-on lawn mowing or all that sort of stuff, why would you not increase your hourly rate when you have increased your expenses for that specific service? It makes no sense. If your bit of gear costs you $40 more per hour, at minimum, you should be charging $40 more per hour. I would say that you need to also be charging more money per hour for the added risk. Because if you go bankrupt, you don't want that piece of machinery sitting around there. You need to make some profit off that risk that you've taken on. Next question is from Humongous. The cost of unbillable hours that Hugh spends chatting. The answer, between $1,000 and $11,800 a year. That was obviously just him having a joke. How can I talk about that? Unbillable hours chatting. Well, hopefully there's a return on investment from that. It's like a marketing expense. You get people to what's the word? Word of mouth, because you're a good talker. Leon Faux, or Faux, F-A-U-X. I think it's Faux. Man, I'm terrible at English. If anybody's ever seen me type on any of these groups, man, I'd never check my words. Hey, I've always got typos and bad spelling. Okay, Leon's question is, how many Zinger boxes will it take for you to join me mowing for the day? And Anthony Hunt's responded saying, this is the only question we need answered. Let's do some maths. For a day, like I said, $150 an hour, including travel time, is about normal for me. I don't like working more than 6 hours physically because I've got problems with my back. So that's like $900 a day is over 6 hours. That would be like an okay day for me. Pretty good. If I was doing large area spraying, I'd want more. Okay. Well, we got 900, and a large Zinger box with a Pepsi Max costs $16.45. Don't ask me how I know that off the top of my head. So it will take you 900 divided by 1645. It will take you 54.71 zinger boxes for me to come and work with you for a day. But to be honest, we're full. I don't have any time. So it'd probably have to be the other way around. You'd have to pay me to come and work with me. That doesn't work out, does it? I don't know how I'm going to find the time to come and work with anybody, even if you had 54.7 zinger boxes, 71 zinger boxes. That 0.01 zinger boxes is important too. Let's round up to 55. Those 55 zinger boxes, first I can't eat them all on a hit. That's like I do talk about zinger boxes a lot, but 55, that is way more than I would have in a year. That's like more than one a week. I know some of you are like, don't lie. You have that in a week. No, I wouldn't. That's a lot of zinger boxes. Next question, Jared Summer. If you were to help a newcomer to the industry to get started, what are the bare bones machines that you would recommend they need to succeed? That's a really good question. My answer is probably not what people would expect. I would not, if I was a newcomer to the industry, here's what I would do. I would definitely not do normal residential mowing and normal residential gardening unless you really love that stuff. If you just wanted to work for yourself and you liked working outside, you like this part of the industry, and you are open to all sorts of services, I would do something that's a lot more rare, a lot more specialized, a lot more technical, and thus there's less competition, and thus you can charge a higher hourly rate. Stuff that is based on your knowledge. I've talked about this before with the Lawn Shed, right? Who are a sponsor, but the one thing I love about the Lawn Shed, about them being a sponsor, is literally the products that they sell are the products that I use to get my business to a point where I am charging $150 an hour, and people don't turn away my quotes that much, right? Obviously, there was marketing stuff we did and business stuff we did as well, but knowing and understanding how to apply products, it's more technical. You get better results. You enjoy the service more, and so things like weed control, I would be going out and I'd be deciding which niche you were going to do. So aeration, it depends on the area you're in, right? So maybe a great example might be like getting a razorback. If you're in an area that needs a lot of slashing and a really hilly area, a specialized machine like a razorback or a flail mower, right? A walk behind flail mower that you can do those hills with. Or if you're someone there's a huge areas of mowing, acreage mowing, don't just go get your normal mower. Go get a Walker or a Gianni Ferrari that can catch the clippings, because that would give you a distinction and an advantage. If you're able to, like in WA, we just don't really get all that much rain over summer, typically speaking. And so everybody has a reticulation system who wants a green garden. And it's so hard to find good retic technicians, like people who don't cut corners. And, it's a specialized service that's only available for a short period of the year. Although you can do retic installs all year round, it does dry up quite a bit over winter. But this is the thing, like if you put yourself into that category, all of a sudden you're highly desirable. Whereas if you're just doing normal mowing, you got to start from the bottom doing the overgrown cleanups and things like that everybody else started off doing. Or, if you're over east, a cylinder mower, I know that might sound sacrilegious to some, but if you can go and get yourself a good quality commercial grade cylinder mower, maybe something secondhand, if you can find something, like it just sets you apart. So what I would do, let's say I was starting out, if Luke Smith was starting out again, knowing what I know, I would do what I'm doing right now, which is complete lawn care packages and gardening, which involve mowing. So I've shot myself in the foot there. But if I was starting out again and I was somebody who didn't love doing all aspects of the industry, I would do a niche like weed spraying, lawn renovations, specific styles of mowing like large scale catching, all that sort of stuff. Niche down. And so the bare bones machines would depend on that. But if you look at like weed spraying, it's a course, a bunch of money in herbicides, and some sprayers. Like it's not expensive to get started in that level, in that type. And you need a lot of marketing, and it's going to take you a while to build up your clients. So I would take some humble pie, and I would try and go and get a part-time job for somebody else 3 days a week and start my business off 2 days a week. And as your business grows, see if you can drop the days that you have with the employer you're working for. That's how I would start a business if I was doing it these days. So yeah, bare bone machines would depend. I guess as well, Jared was probably asking, so I'll answer this question in case this is what he really meant. If I was going to start my business again, doing what I'm doing, what Bemo machines would I get? I'd get a secondhand Mowmaster. Over here in WA, I just sold one to Jared, literally the guy here, sold it to him for $2,500. So you can get a secondhand Mowmaster over here in WA. Sometimes less, like really bad examples that have been abused can be like $1,500. But because they're Mowmasters, you can restore them and they'll come back to life. So look, you can get a secondhand one for something like that. I would get a secondhand rotary, and I would get a cheap, reliable rotary if I was running out of money. Say I had $4,000 to start, assuming you already had the ute. $2,500 on a mower, $500 on a cylinder. So $2,500 on a cylinder, $500 on any sort of walk behind rotary. You can build up your money over time. A fertilizer spreader, a good one for maybe $500. A couple of good sprayers, and probably a nice toolbox, like a nice metal box to put on the back of the ute. And that's probably enough just to start doing those sorts of packages. The cylinder mower, obviously whippy edger. I would get a KM94 with a whippy attachment and an edger attachment, and I'd probably get a real cheap blower, because if you're just doing small residential blocks, whatever you can get is good. Secondhand steel thing off Marketplace. Secondhand steel stuff, if it's been used residentially, it's like, hopefully you can find something where like they've got the spark arrestor still in. Doesn't work, just take the spark arrestor out. It's running sweet. So that's roughly what I do with a budget of maybe $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, depending on what you can get secondhand. Troy Fabians asks, what thoughts? Oh, your thoughts. Yeah, I was like, that doesn't make sense. But that's because I can't read, not because of what he wrote. Your thoughts on a bookkeeper for solo or small setups. Are bookkeepers better in general, and do they save money, help identify areas to save? Yes. Well, it depends. We talked about before administratively. If you're weak with your money, and I am, like, this might surprise some people, I'm terrible with money. No, I should say that. I'm not horrible with money, but I'm so confident and happy with risk, and that's a weakness, because it's a strength because I can do things without fear that other people take years and years to decide, and you end up getting some wins that way. But also, if I come up with a good shiny idea, I'll spend the money on it, and that's there's problems with that. So if you are someone who's like me, like having a bookkeeper who's doing everything for you, helping you keep on top of your money, I think for me, for years and years and years, I've done fortnightly reports on the business. I've had a bookkeeper do fortnightly reports. This was not an external service, but an employee who worked for us. And so every fortnight we could see what was that profit and loss, how much did we spend on this, how much did we spend on that, what are the percentages. It's not that hard to do if you're running everything through like a QuickBooks or a MyOb or something like that. Like that's what they're there for. But yes, if you're weak on that, definitely get a bookkeeper, because you think about whatever the cost is, and I don't know what they charge externally because we've hired them internally, but whatever they charge, I'm sure that you will get that money back over the course of a year, for sure. All right, there are a couple more questions that came through, but before we do that, if you're enjoying this sort of stuff, as always, we have two ways that you can support us. The first is the Patreon account. It's the most direct way that you can support us. If we talked about before, the Lawn Shed. If you are not the sort of person who's interested in buying things from the Lawn Shed, then go through Patreon, because that's just a direct way. You can either buy me a Pepsi Max a month, which is $5, or a Zinger Box a month, which is $15. I couldn't do $16.45 because, for whatever reason, they didn't let me do that. But that actually, believe it or not, the support from that is big. Like if we get 100 people who are signed up to that, it's a couple $100 a month that we will get, $500, $600, $700 a month, depending on the level of people everyone's going for, that we would get from that. And that's huge, because these sorts of niche podcasts, even though this is one of the top ranking podcasts in the gardening and home care niche in Australia, we're like a big fish in a tiny little pond. Like, we're not getting, we're not going to make any money. We don't even have enough views on YouTube to even be qualified for monetization yet. So, if we did qualify, we might get like 45 cents a week or something like that. I don't know what it is, but it's not, we're not getting Joe Rogan numbers. So support us that way. If you are the sort of person who is going to buy fertilizer, you are going to buy herbicides at some stage, then sign up to the Lawn Shed. One, they have everything we use. So if you're someone who, wants to have a business that you can trust and that the quality of products is great, go through there. They're also backed by Living Turf, which is Australia's largest turf supply business. And what they can do is, if they don't have anything on the website that can help you, they can steer you through that channel as well. Now, they don't do that too often, because 99.9% of what contractors needs are on the Lawn Shed. But it's a very helpful business. And if you sign up for a trade account, because it accesses more products through that than you can see just on the residential version. And I get a cut, and that's how it supports the business. So anyways, do that. Support us that way. Here's 2 more questions that we've had. Now, I wrote this one down, and I think someone might have deleted it, because I saw it come through, and I wrote the question down, and then I couldn't find the question later. Hear that? Or I deleted it in my pocket or something, but I wrote it down. 3 underrated bits. I don't know who wrote it. So if they did delete it, no, I'm embarrassed about the question. I can't out you because I don't know who you were. 3 underrated bits of gear for the gardening industry. I did a video on this on Instagram. I think the mulching fork is so underrated. If you do any gardening work, any hedging work, get a mulching fork, because you can just pile all your sticks up, give them a little pat down, a little tread down with your feet, and then shove a mulching fork like straight through the heart of that pile of sticks, and it'll often get the majority of them, especially if it's thorny. If you're doing bougainvillea work, if you're doing roses work, the thorns grab to the other branches really well, and you never have to touch a single bit of, thorny branch if you're using that, because all the small stuff that gets left over, you can just, rake it up and stab it again. Or you can scoop it up, or if you have really, really little small things left, I usually just pick it up with the rotary mower. Get that suction happening. So mulching fork is one of them. Another one is a green bin, like, the normal bin you have at your house. You can buy those. I don't know where you would get them over east, but there are places over here in WA that you can order them. And I haven't bought them for years, because they last years. But last time we bought them, I think we got like 6. And I think, now I might be just telling a massive fib here because my memory is rubbish, but I think they were like $66 each. Maybe it was $70, $80 or something. Like, if you bought them individually, they're like $100 or something. But they come without their wheels assembled. You got to just put them all together. But yeah, they last. I mean, they're just big plastic things, but keep them in your trailer, and it's just, I find them really easy to just, you have them in the trailer, you can wheel them out. If you're doing, like, say you're doing a nice big lawn out the back, it stops you from walking all the way to the trailer every single time, or you're doing any gardening. It's just so much easier to use the wheelie bin. I don't put the lids on when we get them. The lids just, they come unattached. You have to put them on. I just never put them on. I just find that, it's green waste. You just want to open. And I have had it where the lid has flown off when driving down the freeway. But that's underrated. So mulching fork, bin. What else would we use? What else is underrated? I mean, a classic blower, it probably doesn't get the respect it deserves. I don't know if that means it's underrated. I mean, rotary mowers, I think, are the most useful bit of gear. Even though I'm a cylinder mower man in terms of quality of cut, like, just the versatility of a rotary mower, just, mad respect for the good old rotary. But yeah, underrated. What else is underrated? Now I'm getting stumped on this one. No, do you know what I think is underrated? I don't know if it's the most underrated bit of gear, but a reciprocating saw. If you guys know, like some people, Americans call them Sawzalls. They're the ones they're a bit like a jigsaw, but more heavy duty and they work the same sort of way. I think you guys know what I'm talking about. Those things are just handy. And if you've ever done pruning, you got to use a specific like tree pruning blade, because a lot of the like demolition blades or wood pruning blades that you will get will have like a coating on them, like the if they're red or blue or whatever, and that ends up on the branches. But if you go get a clear one, they store in the ute really easily. They're so much easier when pruning things that are tight and hard to, you can't quite get a chainsaw in because the blade's just so thin and small. They're not the fastest thing to cut it, but it's so much easier than using a handsaw. And they're just handy for lots of different things. So a lot of people haven't thought about them in the gardening context, even though there are dedicated gardening ones, single-handed ones. I think AEG sells them. Ryobi's got one. And they're the sort of things that, like with Ryobi, we have a bunch of Ryobi tools at the warehouse because like we don't use them that much. They're not actually really getting commercial use. It's not everyday stuff like the battery-powered secateurs. I bought them like 2 years ago, expecting to like use them for a single job where we had 200 and I think it was 280 roses we had in a single job, and I was like, let's just buy a couple of pairs, $100 at the time, see how they go. Like the Fiskars, not Fiskars, the Felco, bloody secateurs that we had cost more. The handheld ones. I was like, let's just go. I've got batteries. They're still not dead. Like I gave the pair to my grandparents, and they're still going strong. Like there's things like that where probably people haven't thought about buying a reciprocating saw, but when you have it in your ute, you end up you won't use it all the time, but when you do use it, you're like, man, I'm glad I left that in the ute because that was handy. So there you go. And I think this is the last question here. This is from Joel Hydrich. I don't know if I've read everybody's name out now. Have I read everyone's name out when I've been doing these questions? I'm sorry. If you asked the question, I forgot your name. I'm sorry. Joel Hydrich has asked, interested to hear your thoughts on providing best services for lawns during dry periods with consideration to properties with retic and without. Okay, so obviously this is the El Nino, La Nina, Eastern State stuff because us in WA we're basically our own country. But this is our world. I don't think you guys realize that a drought for you is like a normal, like pretty close to a normal summer for us. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. It's just that we're so used to it that we have all these desalination plants. So, and yes, we're blessed with mining money as well. So we're very used to dry, and everybody here has reticulation. Here's what I would do. If you've got a lawn, now plants are a bit different. There's not much more that you can do than wetting agent and maybe just hand watering if you're allowed to, because hopefully, and I feel for you guys over east. I didn't mean to be dismissive of the challenges that will come with the drought, but I was more presenting that as, hey, we think about how to deal with dryness all the time. We have poor quality soils, and you basically get no rain in summer. So I think I've said this a million times, but we had 1.6 mil last summer. So anyways, let's talk about dry periods. With reticulation, all you need is 20 millimeters per week if you do these following processes. And that's all we're actually allowed here in WA, believe it or not. We have water restrictions. A lot of people break them. But at Silverstone Gardening, we specifically won't. We will design our programs around following the rules because you can achieve it, and it is a realistic goal. And if you go back on Instagram on the Silverstone Gardening page, back in January, I went on holiday, came back, I had a solenoid break, and I recovered my lawn in about 6 weeks just using the normal amount of water allowed and some hand watering on top. So if you have reticulation, set it for 20 millimeters per week to save water, not use too much. 2 waterings of 10 mil each would be pretty good. You could even do 1 of maybe say, so for me, I can get away with here in WA with the rain that we have through spring. I can often get away with not turning my sprinklers on at all until sort of mid-October, and then one watering a week until maybe mid-November, like a nice 10 millimeter watering. And then we're usually twice a week from December, January, February, and there would be some hand watering in that period if this was my own lawn. And then March, probably back to once, and it's completely off, usually by the end of March. That's a way of doing the watering if you have reticulation. And the way you can get great results is these three things, or four things, sorry. The first is the aeration at the start of spring. Loosen up the soil, allow root growth. Get it down some kelp, so which is like any seaweed product, right? So I believe Vitalize is the product. I could be getting this wrong on the Launchhead page, but I think there's also one called. I think there's one called Roots. Have a look, but yeah, there's kelp-based products, and using those what you call soil amendments, which are there to encourage root growth. Have a look up on Sawzalls on YouTube about how, like, they've put, like, for example, tomato plant in water and tomato plant in water with Sawzalls, and just look at the root growth. It really does help it. So that's the first thing. You aerate, then you put down your seaweed solution. A wetting agent has been proven in WA conditions to be worth about 20 to 20, 28, 29% more water, because the water is retained in the soil better and gets down into the soil and doesn't evaporate on surface. So if you're getting 10 millimeters a week with a wetting agent, it would be the same as getting maybe 13 millimeters, 12 millimeters, something like that, compared to somebody using 10 millimeters of water without a wetting agent. Hope that made sense. But you're getting more water effectiveness because actually the water's getting down there, not just sitting on the surface and evaporating. And if you're using the right type of wetting agent, like match play, triple play, which has three modes of action, I would guess you might call it, then that will help you retain the water in the soil, not just penetrate through the soil and then just go straight past the root zone. So you've aerated, you've got your roots to grow with kelp. That means the water that's getting in there, there's more roots to take it up. And then the final thing would be actually fertilizing the lawn. Sometimes this seems like a bad idea because if you fertilize a dry and stressed out lawn, you can cause more problems. I'm not talking about doing that. If you know the drought is coming, which we often do in WA, right? We know that where you've got water restrictions, we're not going to get a whole lot of rain. If we do, it's like a big thunderstorm that happens every now and then. It's not small, consistent little showers. You know that's coming. So fertilize with something that has phosphorus. Also potassium is important, but not just a nitrogen high product. Something that has a lot more of those macro or micronutrients as well. And the reason is that will also help your root growth. So everything you're trying to do is about encouraging root growth. So a product that has sort of maybe 2% phosphorus, and I'm not going to recommend a specific one because it depends on everybody. Everybody's different, right? Everyone will have like slight specific different goals, but anything that has some phosphorus in it will help with that root growth. And that will, if you do that in the start of spring, which is coming up in about a week, that will help you have a much healthier, much more resilient lawn when the hot weather comes. You probably, if you have a complete sprinkler ban, if you get some rain, fantastic. If you're getting roughly the equivalent of 20 mil a week, you probably will survive, but that might not be the case. So if you're struggling and you have a complete sprinkler ban, or you have someone who has no reticulation at all, there comes a point where you just can't help them. Maybe if they are allowed to use their sprinklers, but they don't have a system, maybe get an impact sprinkler on a post or something like that, and a simple $100, $120 tap timer, something like that, just to help them, get something out there. But that's what I do. You're encouraging the root growth, all that sort of stuff. I've had years. We had the hottest summer. Last year was a very dry summer, but the year before was the hottest summer we'd had for a very long time. And I didn't water my lawn at all until November the 11th. No, that's not true. Sorry. I did water it to water in products, but I didn't turn my sprinklers on. So I might have had 2 10mm waterings all the way up to November the 11th. And then it was once a week for a while. Like it's, encouraging deep root growth, having, the weeding agent down, the fertilizers, the kelp, it really, really does work. Let me check if I got any more questions. I don't think I do. I'll just check Instagram. Hopefully that's helpful. I've got a bit of a sore throat today. Just as I'm checking these things. Doesn't like this anymore. I've got a bit of a sore throat because my daughter decided that sleeping was not on the agenda in the middle of the night last night. And so I didn't get that much sleep and I woke up feeling a little bit sick. Anyways, it's the podcast. I don't have any more questions. I just checked. Hopefully you found that helpful. I think I will do these on the rare occasion. The next couple of episodes will be coming out soon. Got some really interesting ones. Certain angles we haven't, or parts of the industry we haven't explored yet. Hope you've been enjoying it. If you made it this far in the podcast, then support the podcast through. Obviously, you like what we're doing, so support the podcast through either sharing it. If you have no way that you can support us financially, that's no problem at all. Just share the podcast, get the word out there, or jump on our Patreon, or jump on the Lawn Shed. I'll see you in the next episode.